Hey, welcome to this video. My name's Andy Campbell. The purpose of this video is to explain exactly what I do and how it works so you can get a good understanding of the methodology that I use in my mindset coaching practice. So to explain what I do, the first thing that you need to understand is that we have both a conscious mind. So your conscious mind are the things that you're aware of right now in your environment. So for example, the words on this page you're consciously aware of. We also have an unconscious mind. So these are the things that right now you're not aware of in your environment. For example, how your foot feels in your socks if you're wearing shoes. So everything that's happening right now in your awareness, some things you're consciously aware of, and there's other things that are going on, but you're just not consciously aware of those. So we have both a conscious mind and we have an unconscious mind. Now, another thing to explain, another principle is the law of polarity. This will help explain exactly what I do. So the law of polarity basically states that everything is dual and everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. There's like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree, and extremes meet. So what does all that mean? Basically, it means that everything in life has both a positive and a negative, and they're both one and the other extreme of the same thing. So for example, you can't have a down without an up. You can't have cold without hot. You can't have outside without inside. You can't have sad without happy. You can't have one without the other. They're two extremes of the one thing. So everything is dual and they're both two extremes of each other. They're the same in essence, but different in degree. So everything in life has both sides, positive and negative. You can't get one without the other. In actuality, they're two halves of a whole. So the positive side of something, the negative side of something, both actually make up the whole when they're combined together. Everything in life has both sides to it. So a battery has a positive and negative pole, a magnet has a positive attractive and a negative repulsive. Human emotions, happy, sad, positive, negative emotions. There's two poles of the earth. Atoms have positrons and electrons. Everything that's present in the universe, manifests in the universe, has both sides, positive and negative to it. This is the contrast of opposites. So again, you've got your polarities. You're up, you're down, you're hot, you're cold, you're inside, you're outside. They're two sides of the same thing. So you always have both, but you're not always aware of both. And so what that means is, if this is your conscious mind on the left here and your unconscious on the right, you might be consciously aware of the downside of something, but you're unconscious of the upside. Or let's say that you're on a balcony somewhere and you look over the edge of the balcony and you're consciously aware of the things that you're looking down on that are below you. You're conscious of those, but you're unconscious of the things that are above you in that same moment. It doesn't mean that when you're conscious of the things that are below you that the upside disappears. It's still there. It's just in your unconscious mind. Or when you're outside, if you're conscious of being outside, you're unconscious of where you're inside. So maybe you're outside your house, but you're inside the earth. The point of this description is that you can't have one without the other. It's just your conscious awareness is on one of them, maybe if you're looking down, and the unconscious is the other part of it that you're not aware of in that specific moment. And then other times you're conscious of the upside and you're unconscious of the downside of something. So your mind and its perceptions are like a magnet. There's a attractive end of the magnet and there's a repulsive end of the magnet. So if you have a whole lot of positive associations to something, you're automatically going to be drawn to it and you're going to seek it like prey. And on the other side of the coin, if you've got a whole lot of negative associations, you're going to avoid it and you're going to be repulsed from it. For example, there's a tiger there, a predator. And this is a survival instinct that helps human beings to survive out there in the wild, because if we didn't have this instinct of building up positive associations, we wouldn't find food and we wouldn't survive and we wouldn't avoid the predator. Like I said earlier, you can't get a positive out of negative. They come together. So in this case, you're probably thinking, well, there's no negative to the food and there's no positive to the predator. In actuality, with the chicken, if you eat too much of food, you're going to get fat and overweight and you're going to have health issues because you're obese. The negative of the food is if you have too much, you're going to get obese. On the other side of the coin, you've got the predator, which in your awareness is all negative and no positive. Well, the benefit of the predator is it's actually helping you keep fit, because if you didn't have something chasing you around in the wild, you just overeat on the chicken and you get obese and you get you lose your health and you probably die sooner. So with your prey, you've got a positives in your awareness, positive associations, but there's also negatives. With the predator, there's negatives in your mind, but there's also positives to it. So you can't have one without the other. Negative and positive perceptions are actually two halves of the one whole. If you're consciously aware of more positives and more benefits and more upsides of something, you're going to have an emotion and you're going to be happy or elated or ecstatic. So you can look at your emotion as a feedback of what you're aware of. Vice versa, if you're consciously aware of more negative and you're unconscious of the positive, you're going to have another emotion of sadness. Now, does that mean that in that moment there's more negative than positive? No, it just means that you're consciously aware of more negative than positive. And so you've got an emotion. Any emotion, happiness, sadness, you could define as a lie about what is. Because you're thinking that there's one without the other. It's an ignorance of half of the equation. The line down the center, this represents gratitude. So there's two halves of the one whole. When you see this midpoint, this is the mean between the two extremes. If you are at this midpoint in your mind, in your perception, where you can see equal negative to positive of something, you're grateful for that thing. If someone asks you, would you want to change this thing? You would say, no, there's nothing to change about it. I can see equal negative, equal positive. Have gratitude for it the way that it is. There's nothing to change about it. So this state of mind only comes at the mean point, the midpoint between the two extremes of positive and negative. This is where the meaning is in life. When you're grateful in life, it's because you're seeing the meaning of something, the midpoint between the two extremes. A lopsided ratio of perception, sometimes in life you'll be aware of the upside but overlooking the downside. So like I mentioned earlier, you can never get a negative about a positive, but sometimes we're consciously aware of a positive about a negative. And so I want to give some examples of this so that it really makes sense, because you can understand it conceptually, but when you have an example in real life, it really cements this idea and makes sense. So let's say that you've got a new relationship partner and you're a bit infatuated with the person, you're in the honeymoon phase, and you're trying to present the best version of yourself, and you're repressing all the negative parts of you, you're expressing the positive. And then what happens after a while is the new relationship partner that you're infatuated with in the honeymoon phase becomes the greatest nightmare when they no longer match up to the one-sided person you thought they were. So when you meet them, because they're only showing one side of them, their nice side, their happy side, you think they're all positive and no negative. And then after a while, they get more comfortable with you. They can start being themselves more around you. And they start to show their negative side to go with the positive side, because everybody has both sides. Everybody has nice and mean. Now, what some people might think is, when I met him, he did everything for me and he was so nice, and now he's a narcissist and he's doing things for himself. Well, no, the reality is, when you met him, you thought he was all positive, which is a fantasy. As he starts to be more of himself, you start to see negative and the positive, which is the reality of something. But if you're used to seeing someone as this all positive, nice person, and all of a sudden they start to introduce their other side, you might think that they've changed, or you might think that they're now more narcissistic. But the reality is they're just showing you both sides of their being. The boom stock pick that just keeps going up in price. So let's say you're aware of the upside there. Negative that's in your unconscious mind is it ends up being overpriced and crashes. So you're consciously aware of the positive. There's this boom stock pick. You want to buy it, you want to get in, but unconscious to the fact that it's overpriced and it's going to crash soon. The next example, you're consciously aware of the positive, the parent or partner that looks after you financially and buys you everything you need, but you're unconscious of the negative. They become the very person that you resent when you realize that you're now dependent on them for survival and income. The business opportunity that sounds too good to be true. You're conscious of the positive, you're unconscious of the negative. It was too good to be true because there was a catch in the fine print. Anytime that you're excited in business, elated in business, it's feedback that you're seeing more positive than negative. You're ignorant of half of what's going on, and then inevitably, over a period of time, the other side's going to come out, and it's too good to be true. So when you're making a decision in business, you want to be objective. You don't want to be elated or excited, because that means that you're seeing one side without the other. So your emotions are giving you feedback. Well, let's take this one, the crash diet, where you drop calories and you lose weight fast. Well, you're aware of the positive of how much weight you're losing, but then on the other side of the coin, you're unconscious of the downside. It's not sustainable. It leads your body into compensation, and you end up storing more weight long term. So in each of these examples, initially you think you're getting a positive out of negative. Over time, you start to realize the negative that goes with the positive. But the reality was the whole time they both had two sides to them, positive and negative. You can't get one without the other. Just in our awareness, we see one without the other and we get infatuated with things. So my role is to ask a series of specific questions that are designed to bring the unconscious content of your mind into your conscious awareness so that you can dissolve the subjective emotional volatilities and become objective and grateful. So like what I talked about previously, if you're seeing one side without the other, you're conscious of the positive, unconscious of the negative, it's only a matter of time before it's going to come up and smack you. Vice versa, if you're conscious of all the negatives, maybe just been through a breakup, for example, but you're unconscious of all the positives, it's only a matter of time before you look back 5 years later and you think, oh, thank God that happened. So my role is to ask you a series of specific questions to bring that unconscious awareness into your conscious mind so you see both and you can be rational and objective and grateful for your reality instead of thinking it needs to be one side or the other. You might start out seeing negative and unconscious the positive, and you've got all these emotional volatilities of sadness and anger and frustration and disappointment going on. When you ask yourself the right questions that bring the unconscious content of your mind into your conscious awareness, you dissolve the emotional volatilities and you're grateful. Because when you see equal positive to negative of something, you see both sides and you're grateful for that thing as it is. There's nothing to change. If somebody asked you in that state of mind, when you're grateful for the thing, is there anything that you would change about your situation? You say, no, it's perfect as it is. So it's basically asking the right questions to bring that awareness into your mind, bringing balance to your awareness. Now, this is the methodology that I use. It's called the Demartini method. It was developed by Dr. John Demartini. So Dr. Demartini is the top human behavior expert in the world. If you Google that, he is what will come up. He was awarded that by the International Association of Top Professionals. But basically, there's a period in my life when I was working with a counselor, I was working with a therapist, and I had the experience of I'd go along to these people that asked me these questions. I'd feel uncomfortable. I didn't get anywhere. I feel like it didn't solve the problem. And I'd go home having this uncomfortable conversation with someone. I thought, well, that didn't really help me. And basically what I did was I decided that I want to find someone that knows what they're talking about. And so I Googled the top human behavioral specialists in the world, and I found Dr. Demartini. And so from that point, I then, since then, have invested over $100,000 in mindset education, learning as much as I can about human behavior. And so then I learned this Demartini method, and that's brought me to what I do today. So here's some of the uses of this Demartini method that I use. So you can use it on all sorts of emotional states, as I discussed, to dissolve your imbalanced perceptions. You can also use this in business. So if you're making decisions in business, you want to be objective. You want to be aware of everything that's going on, the positive and the negative. You don't want to be elated in business, ecstatic in business making decisions, because you're going to be unconscious of the other side of the situation. I work with people in business to help them make objective decisions. You can use it to clarify your life purpose. To the degree that you've got a lot of fear and guilt and emotional baggage in your life, those states of mind are going to block you from being aware of your future and what you want to go out and achieve in the world, your purpose and what's important to you. You can also use this methodology to develop leadership and confidence in your own unique abilities. Essentially, what this series of questions does, bringing conscious awareness to both sides of your reality, is it helps you to discover your unique purpose here on the planet. Because as you dissolve all of these emotional volatilities, you become objective, and you can objectively see what you're great at and what you're here for and where you're unique. There's a range of different things it can help with. There's all sorts of emotional kind of states of mind that if the person answers these specific questions, they can dissolve these states of mind. That's what I do as a Demartini method facilitator, as a mindset coach. If you're going through any of these things, you want some assistance with it, reach out on this page, find the message me button or get in touch button, send me a message. I would love to help you out with whatever's going on to rebalance your perspective on life. Also join my email list. So there's a link on this page to join my mailing list as well. So you can be in touch with seminars, online courses that I'm doing, this kind of thing. But that's essentially what I do and how it works. It's all about bringing your emotional state of mind or your subjective mind back into a objective, grateful state, because that's in that state of mind is where is the truth of what's actually there. You're not polarized one side or the other. So thanks for watching. I hope you got some value and really understand what I do and how it works. And hopefully I'll work with you in some capacity soon.